I store my welder in this gray cabinet, and it works great. The cabinet is weatherproof, but you can't weld on top of this cabinet. You need something that will conduct electricity and also something that won't burn. This is an old piece of 1/4 inch steel that I've had, and at some point there must have been angle iron legs on it, and they were cut off, but they weren't cut flush. So I'm going to get started by using the torch and cutting the angle iron as close to the surface as I can. Next I'll use the 6-inch grinder and grind the metal flush with the surface. Then I'll switch over to the wire wheel to remove any dirt or rust. The sharp angles at the corners just seemed like an accident waiting to happen, so I'm using the torch to round the corners over. Once I finish cutting the steel away, I'll use the 4-inch grinder and smooth out the cut. I don't want to use the steel directly on top of the cabinet because I don't want to burn the paint and I don't want to damage the top. So I'm going to build a quick frame using some old 2x4s. I'll cut the 2x4s to length and then use squeeze clamps to hold everything in place and then screw the frame together with 3-inch long deck screws. I'm using beeswax as a protective finish for the tabletop. Now this isn't going to be a weather resistant finish like a paint would, but you wouldn't want to weld on a painted surface. First of all, the paint would burn and give off toxic fumes, and it would just ruin the paint job. And now I'll plug the welder in and test it out. My welder is an old Lincoln stick welder that a friend gave to me more than 20 years ago. And I should add that I don't know very much about welding. I do know enough to do what I want to do for now. But one thing I do know is the 7014 rod is probably the easiest rod to weld with, and that's what I'm working with right now. Okay, so that was my third outdoor welding area project in a row. And in case you're getting sick of those, I will have a woodworking project coming up soon. In fact, right now I'm practicing my dovetails for an upcoming project. I'm glad I'm practicing because I still need a little practicing to do. But I wanted to finish that whole project up and just get it over with. And now I've got a place where I can weld. I've got a place for my torch and my gas tanks, my welder, and the anvil is nice and secure, and the tables are ready to weld on. And I've already gotten a few questions on the project. I'm mainly talking about the beeswax and why didn't I just paint the steel. You wouldn't want to paint a welding table or a table that you're going to weld on. Number one, a painted steel top won't conduct electricity, so it doesn't make a good welding table. And two, you just wouldn't want to be welding on a painted surface to creating fumes, ruining the paint job. So for me, the idea of beeswax was the best solution. The beeswax finish is thin enough that the ground will bite through the beeswax finish, and then your workpiece, occasionally you might have to take your workpiece and kind of scratch through the finish a little bit to get the connection, but overall it works really good. I think that it is a finish that will require maintenance, and I don't think it's going to be very difficult to maintain. It will just be a matter of heating up the surface and applying more wax. Now that all the heavy work is done with the wire wheel, removing the loose rust and the scale, whatever, all that kind of funky stuff that was on the steel. Now that that's gone, literally probably every 3 months I'll just hit the top with some wax, burn it in, remove any of the excess wax, heat it into the steel again, and I think it's going to be a good working surface and probably the best solution for my situation, which is an outdoor welding area. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.